Hello, my name is Jordan Stark. My placement is Waverly Middle School, where I am placed inside Mr. K's early U.S. history class. His class is set up in a group competition style format where 5 to 6 students work together in a pod, and points are awarded to the group as a whole based on cooperation and participation. If a group member raises their hand and answers a question or provides input, then the group gets tallied for participation on the chart, which is counted at the end of each class period. Sometimes he holds group competitions held in the form of unit reviews or games. The group with the most points at the end of the unit gets an automatic 95% on the test as long as they have completed all previous homework and have scored well on all of their quizzes. The group in second place gets to create a note card on the test. One of the distinguishing aspects of the classroom is its use of newer literacies. The district has recently been given a technological grant, which has allowed the school to update many of its classrooms and provide new educational tools to create a better learning environment for students. Some of these upgrades have included using iPads for vocab activities and quizzes rather than relying on a textbook. The most commonly used example in the classroom is Mr. K's use of his smartboard at the beginning of every class. He has a picture and a question of the day to introduce the lesson the students will be learning about for that given day, as well as the old, has also given me insight as to how my students learn and where they struggle. My first focal student is Ashley. She's relatively quiet, down to earth, and while she oftentimes knows what she is doing, she isn't very confident in her abilities and stays quiet during group work. She works better outside of the classroom, either in the library or in the collaborative space. While she enjoys being around her friends and conversing with people inside the classroom, she acknowledges that she gets more work done when in a quiet environment and not surrounded by distractions. Outside of school, she does limited reading in mystery novels or young adult fiction, but she does not really consider herself to be a reader. History is her least favorite subject, as she has stated numerous times, and she is not the biggest fan of Mr. K. My other focal student is Jared. Like Ashley, he is quiet and likes to focus on his work. However, unlike her, he considers himself a reader. His favorite subject is history, and he tells me that he loves to read history books and books on war during his downtime when he isn't playing video games. He has said that reading is big in his family and that they take time out of their day to read a book for a certain period of time. Despite this, the reason that Mr. K selected Jared as one of my focal students was the lack of completed or turned-in work. Isn't very confident in her abilities and her question answering. Oftentimes, when she doesn't understand the question or isn't very confident in her answer, she will end her answers with a question mark and skip on to the next problem. Her focus was to finish her work and not have to take work home. Jared, on the other hand, would spend quite a bit of time on writing down notes and reading the pages multiple times. At first, I thought this was a strength rather than a weakness, but by next week we went back to working on last week's worksheets. I began to immediately see the reasons why both of these students were chosen by Mr. K to be my focal students. Ashley wouldn't ask for help and would either rush through homework or questions, and Jared, on the other hand, would be so focused on creating notes and rereading that he wouldn't have time to finish homework from the day before and would have missing assignments. Subsequent visits would lead me to confront both of these issues with my students. On the next visit, instead of waiting for them to ask me questions, I would look over their work as they were doing it and watch their patterns of answering. The easiest issue to confront was Ashley's question marks. In essence, all I really needed to do was build her confidence and pinpoint her focus. I would ask her why she would end her sentences like that, and most of the time it would be because she couldn't either find a word-for-word answer in the text, and she would have to rely on her own knowledge. I would challenge her on this by pointing out that she normally has the correct answer and the correct analysis on her worksheets. She would seem surprised and confused that her answer would be sufficient, but would accept my word for it anyway. I would continue to point this out every time she did it, until eventually she would erase the question marks and finish answers with complete thought rather than just put half-ass answers and finish her work. Over time, I began to notice Ashley becoming slightly more involved in the classroom, as she began to raise her hand once or twice during the class period rather than stay silent and not know how to answer questions asked by Mr. K. During my visits, she would use less question marks and short answers and would become more assured in her answers. At my urging, she began to use a literary strategy that Mr. K tried to implement to his students called metacognitive conversation. Seeing her become more confident in her own answers has allowed her to branch out and try other strategies, as well as reread text, which has helped her create more thorough answers. Jared's issue was less singular and was more conflicting. On one hand, his note-taking was very thorough, and he used strategies often to make sure that he was reading all of the text. While his reading and literacy weren't the issues, it was his overabundance of reading and note-taking that would use up the majority of his time instead of homework. To fix this, every time I visited, I would begin by asking him to bring out any unfinished work he has. I would push through this and try to make him answer the questions using his prior knowledge instead of only doing note-taking. Overall, this created mixed results. Jared would remain steadfast in his note-taking and focus on reading rather than completing work. While in the long run, it didn't seem to affect his knowledge base. An example was he was able to score over 93% on the multiple choice portion of his test. He still wouldn't be able to complete enough homework either at home or in the classroom, hurting his grade overall. While I have worked with middle school adolescents before during my time as a camp counselor, my focal students and experience at Waverly Middle School gives me insight and experience unlike any that I've had before. Unlike my past service learning experience, instead of supervising youth, the experience has allowed me to get up close and personal with seeing how students learn and what their weaknesses and strengths are in a classroom setting. It allowed me to not only see how students learn and what strategies they use to learn, but it allowed me to experience how students learn when they are on their own, rather than answering questions I present or me leading their thought process.